So I thought I'd go ahead and take a few minutes to try to address the oil leak on the autocrosser because, well, if I'm going to go autocrossing, I need to address it. And I want to get out there here pretty soon. Now, unfortunately, right now, I still haven't got the electric done yet. That's still about 2 weeks out to get started on that. So my lighting is terrible out here. And I don't have the lift yet. It's still sitting right here. I'm still working on right now, working on exact positioning of it. Try to figure out where I want it to sit so it's not too far out in the shop this way, but giving me enough room around here for any vehicle that I might actually put on it. And I still have to drill into the concrete, find out exactly how thick it is, because that will limit what I can put on it. So I've identified my oil leak. Now it's really hard to get the camera in there and see, but the light where I can, right down in the very bottom down there, there's two oil galley plugs. Well, actually the top one is an oil galley plug and the bottom one is actually the oil pressure relief valve cap. It seems like my oil is leaking from one or both of those. And you can tell underneath here where it had been leaking out from right above there down right here onto my header and covering the header, and that's why it's been smoking so much sitting at stoplights. Now it is very, very difficult to actually get to those. They're right up there. You barely get your hand in there to get to them. Now in my case, I got this header here, which I built this header myself. It's not one of the ones you can buy out of the catalog. So it fits differently. Because I wanted something that was a little bit larger in diameter for the engine that I used to have in this. And I built it so that these two, the 1 and 4, were actually equal length, where the ones out of the box aren't quite equal length. And then I changed the routing of these to try to make the total length of these two, which would be, you consider that the secondaries, to be a little closer to the same length. But yeah, the bottom one's a 1 inch and the top one's 13/16. Now when I did get up in there, both of them were just a little on the loose side, and I snugged them up a little, and that should take care of the oil leak. So of course, anyone who'd been following my channel would know, but those of you who haven't been following my channel that long, if you go back to some of last year's videos when I was putting this car back together, getting it ready to go autocrossing, you'll find out that my old engine had 8 3-lifters, and all the trash went through all the bearings, oil pump, and just trashed the whole motor. So this is actually just a used engine. It's actually the one that came out of Ginsu there. So it had about 85,000 miles on it. I pulled it apart, pulled the head off of it to look at the bores because it hadn't run in 20 years. So pulled the oil pan off, looked in there, checked out the bearings. The bearings looked good, but the cam was wiped. And I found a engine block that had a cam and lifters in it, but no pistons in the shed. Put that cam and those lifters into this motor, and then that's my ported head off my other motor, and that's what I'm running right now. So I got the light flywheel, the baffled oil pan, and the cylinder head off my good engine on just a used 85,000 mile bottom end. And this is just a temporary motor. I do have an engine sitting at the machine shop right now. And I just talked to him the other day and told him I'm about a month out from wanting to have that here to try to start putting that together. And you'll notice all kinds of oil splattered all over because one day I was checking the oil, didn't have any oil sitting up at the house at my old place, left the dipstick just kind of laying here because I was going to grab a quart when I got done working and bring it back. Totally forgot about it. Ended up dropping the hood, taking the car to work, and forgot to put the dipstick back in, and it splattered oil everywhere out the dipstick hole. So I got a lot of cleanup to do here before I can go autocrossing because they won't like to see that during the tech inspection. So for now, I'm just working off of jack stands for at least a few more weeks. I'm going to start bringing some customer work in here soon because I'm actually starting to get some control over the place where I got some room to start working now. But look for a build on the new engine for this coming up here in the next couple months. It ought to be an interesting build. It's not going to quite fit the street prepared rules. And if they don't like me in street prepared, then they can put me wherever they decide to put me. I don't care. I'm just building the motor I want rather than one that actually fits the class, because I've already done one that fit the class, was never happy with it because they limit you to stock cam and no more than 40 over and no real cylinder head work. My cylinder head's already beyond the class rules and I want more cam. I'm not going to put a stock cam in this thing. So my new motor is going to be 60 over, max speeding rods, and I'll probably go for a VP12 cam this time. And the compression will be up somewhere around 9 3/4 to 1. Hopefully get it close to 10 to 1 if I can. But that will probably require custom push rods because with the head work that I've got done and the chamber work that's been done to this thing to unshroud the valves a little bit and CC the chambers to all the same size, I've got to skim the block and head enough to where even the 15 thousandths shorter push rods that I have for it are still too long to get the compression up to 10 to 1 without buying shallower dish pistons, which can get really expensive. And I'm going to reuse the pistons from the old engine that was in this, so I'm not doing that. Now, while I was under here, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and just check the bolts for the oil pan as well and make sure none of them had come loose. Now, it's a good idea when you're checking those to only use a 1/4 inch drive ratchet. Don't use 3/8 or 1/2 inch drive, because with a 1/4 inch drive ratchet, you have less leverage. That means it's much easier to tell if you're over tightening or not, and you don't want to over tighten those bolts because you can deform this rail just a little bit and cause leaks. In my case, they all felt okay, so it's not the oil pan that's leaking. I got a little bit, so I think it's mostly from the two plugs there. Now I'll get to drive it a little bit and find out. I'll clean it up a little bit under here, drive it a little bit and find out if that fixes my leak or not. All right, well, I cleaned up the inner fender well and the wires and stuff and got some of that oil splatter off there. I still got to go drive it yet. Make sure that we don't have any more leaks. Of course, it is an MG. They are prone to that. But coming up for the future of the channel, I got a lot of stuff on the mind, a lot of stuff I'm thinking about, and a lot of good ideas. Of course, we're going to get this thing out autocrossing at least a couple of times before the season's over. Of course, there's limited opportunities, and I got an awful lot of work to do around the shop. But we will get it out. Of course, I'll be doing some videos on getting all the shop here all together, getting the ceiling in, getting it insulated and set up. The red 60 MGA, we'll do some videos on getting that thing finished up. And of course, we'll get back over here to Project Ginsu. And what I like to do is get the suspension finally built, the front suspension finally built for it, finish the roll cage, and get all the suspension underneath it so I can get it off the jig and onto its all 4 wheels rolling around, and then get the engine back in it, build the left side header and the rest of the exhaust system. And once we get that far, hopefully by British Car Day for spring, I'll actually have the fuel system set up and enough of the electrical put together to where I can actually drive it on and off the trailer and into the show. Wouldn't that be great? And speaking of British Car Day Columbus, I did actually take the time during the move, which I really shouldn't have, but I did, to go to that show. I took some video, and this time I brought my microphone to try to get good audio for you, because last year I didn't have a microphone and the audio was not very good. And I had a problem with the microphone and lost all the audio. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a decent overdub or voiceover or not. So you may not see a video on that this year. But I've also got plenty of other interesting ideas of things I'd like to do. I do have another MG sitting tucked away that none of you have seen yet, that's had some interesting modifications done to it in the past. Once I get there's an out-of-state title with some clerical errors that from when they were being hand typed, and if I can get that sorted out, which is notoriously difficult here in the state of Ohio, then I'm going to get that in here and make a fun project out of that. Something instead of like this here, where this is what I consider a once-in-a-lifetime project. That one's just going to be just for the fun of it. The metal work, just have fun with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Slam it together and just goof around with it and have some fun. Maybe even leave it kind of ratty looking. We'll decide that later. And I got some other interesting ideas. I got one idea for a car that's basically a YouTube special. That kind of goes along with some of the stuff that's somewhat popular on YouTube right now with a lot of the car channels, but something that nobody's done with an MG yet. Once I get monetized, because the channel is still a little bit away from that, I may dig into that project and start that one. So we got lots of interesting stuff coming up, and hopefully I'll be able to spend more time getting more videos out, and I can get back to doing 2 videos a week here at some point. And we'll make this thing go. We'll have some fun, take you guys on a journey. And if you guys want to see that other car, remember, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let's get this thing up to past 1,000 subscribers so that I can hopefully get monetized. And once I get monetized, I can take what little money that is and put into that other car that I got sitting out back and build that YouTube special.